Hey, what's going on, Rams fans? We'll let everyone kind of get in here. This is the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network, going live after a tough loss in Chicago to Caleb Williams and the Bears. Gonna get all into it. Talk about kind of the good, what little there was. There was maybe some good we can talk about. The bad, where they go from here. They got one more game next week with the Packers, and they have a bye week. So get into all that, and obviously we'll do our main, more kind of extensive show probably tomorrow. But more want to get reactions, see how the fans are feeling. So get in here, bring your thoughts, bring your questions. But Skinny, how you doing, man? On this Sunday.
Well, doing all right. Always, I love these early games. It's, usually when they're on the West Coast, we're getting that 1 o'clock time. So, that was kind of fun. Wake up early, get the dog walk in.
It is nice. And so I cover SC, obviously, like everyone knows. And so yesterday was for college. West Coast is pretty early, actually, a 12:30 game. But that's still since I'm at the stadium, that's still I get there at 10, and the game doesn't end until 4:30. And then you have the press conference, and then we did a live show from the stadium there. I can get home till almost 8 o'clock. It was a long day. So this Rams game, they're away. It's kind of all right, cool. We hop on. Game starts at 10. Now we're doing our live show at 1:30. Be done by 2. It'd be nice.
A lot of day. Yeah.
And just maybe enjoy the afternoon games and chill. Would be more fun to enjoy if the Rams got the win. 24-18 loss at the hands of the Bears. We'll get obviously into it, but just your initial big picture takeaways.
Yeah, this is a game they should have won. I think, you can only put the game on Stafford's shoulders so many times before, he's exposed. He's not exposed, but, the heroics, aren't there all the time. And, they've been asking a ton of him. I think, the Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp absence was felt most widely in this game so far. Kyron Williams, still a stud.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my kind of big takeaway is, the offense in general. Chicago's a good defense. We talked about that in the pregame show and all year. Not us, but just in general, everyone knew this Bears team was going to go as far as Caleb could take them, but their defense was a championship caliber defense, even dating back to last year. So we knew they were going to have a good defense, and the Rams offense, every now and then could move the ball, but never got in a true rhythm. Even when they got some nice drives, couldn't capitalize in the red zone. I mean, McVay said before this game, they got to get better in the red zone, and they were not any better in the red zone this game. When they ended up finishing with 1 touchdown in the red zone and 3 field goals.
Yeah, 3 field goals in the red zone. But yeah, that was my biggest takeaway is the Chicago Bears were 2-4 in the red zone, and that was the difference. They lost by 6. That's 6 points right there. So, I think, there's, I've always wanted them to be more aggressive in the red zone and also on 4th down as well.
Which they were last week, which is probably why they won.
It's exactly why they won, and McVay is only aggressive when he is forced to be aggressive. And last week he was forced to be aggressive because they were down, heading in late, and the heroics worked then. They didn't work this time. This is one of the odd bad Stafford games. Although he moves up one spot, moving past Eli Manning as the 10th place in the all-time passing yards. So if there's a silver lining to anything, he passed it by 1 yard.
There you go. So, 1 yard. Top 10 all-time passing. You'd like to do that in a win, but hey, it's still congrats to Stafford. That's still an amazing accomplishment. And obviously, he'll keep moving up in those standings, those rankings. But overall, the offense did end up finishing with 322 total yards, finished with 119 rushing yards. So got over the century mark rushing. Kyron 19 carries, Ronnie Rivers 6 carries. I don't want to belabor this point, but again, no Blake Corum. So whatever's going on with that, it's wild to think still through 4 weeks, he doesn't have a single carry, right? Through 4 weeks?
No, he's got some carries. It was in the back half of that Cardinals game, I think.
So. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah,
Garbage time.
eight snaps total, I think, on offense. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's unfortunate as well. Yeah, I mean Stafford got beat up in this game. We've got Aaron talking about that late hit, which the football fan of me, I'm glad they didn't call that because I hate that when like they get grazed and they get called for a big penalty. But yeah, that he wasn't. It wasn't the beginning of when he was getting beat up.
Yeah.
I wrote a little bit of this in an article, but he has 15 QB hits so far this season, which is third most in the league. And now we're tacking on like another 6 or so to that. So the offensive line is, that's where that deficiency is showing up as well. The wide receivers made a bunch of mistakes today. Tyler Johnson kept going. Jordan Whittington stopped too soon. There was all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
All mistakes that when you're banged up like this, that's what's going to happen.
Well, and it's unfortunate look, I get it. There's been injuries on the offensive line, but when you specifically spend the bulk of your payroll on the offensive line for the sole purpose of keeping your 36-year-old quarterback healthy and upright, and you're now the third most pressured and hit QB in the league, like, that's a problem. That's an issue. And again,
Yeah.
I get there's been some injuries. They weren't forecasting these guys to get injured. But it is what it is. You're 4 weeks into the season now, and now this is what you kind of have to deal with. And Chicago has a great pass rush. They have a great defensive line. Montez Sweat, who they got a trade last year, obviously very, very good player. He was all over the place in this one. And it's unfortunate when he was even burning, Rob Havenstein. It wasn't like he was just going up against the backups. Like he was making Rob Havenstein look silly at times out there. So yeah, it's not good. Stafford obviously tough as nails. So it's he's going to be fine and whatever, but that's causing obviously timing issues in the pass game and whatnot. So I thought the run game looked good at times. I don't know. I was trying to. I don't know if I'm as critical on McVay. This one didn't seem like he abandoned it. Like sometimes I still would have liked to see more, just because I thought it was working better, and because of the pressure that Stafford was getting. I thought you could have leaned on it even a little bit more. But I think overall the efficiency was fairly good there. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I think they were doing a great job. I think coming out of halftime, though, the Chicago Bears did a great job adjusting to it.
Mhm.
There were some negative plays coming out of halftime there, whereas most of those running plays were, really effective in the first half. And good defenses adjust, and that's exactly what they did, and they really started mitigating that, and yeah. So, but yeah, it's hard to, I think, in terms of balance, run pass balance, they did what they could there. They just got to take advantage of those times when they were moving the ball really well in the first half, and we were just talking about it before we got on about all these very lopsided games from yesterday, particularly where we saw Alabama go up in the first half big, and then we saw Wisconsin go up big in the USC game, and both of those teams came roaring back. Georgia and USC came roaring back in the second half, and you got to get up big in the first half. Vikings got up big against Green Bay today, and they were just moving the ball so well in that first half. You got to come out of there with a touchdown, and it, yeah. I didn't love the play calling. I didn't, when you're putting it on your base of this offense is basically riding on two people's backs right now, maybe three if you want to throw in Kevin Dotson and maybe Rob Havenstein in there, but it's Stafford and Kyron Williams right now, and that's it's. And when you have a good defense, going back to what I was saying in our preview show, which is this is one of the best defenses they've faced this year, probably the best. This is what happens. It disrupts Stafford. They adjust to Kyron Williams. They weren't really able to ground it to a halt because this is a McVay offense, and McVay's great. Tutu Atwell looking like a great receiver again out there.
Yeah. Jordan
But
Whittington looks solid.
yeah. But it's just those small mistakes, mistakes in the red zone, mistakes when you're in plus territory, and that's the tale of this game. It didn't feel like it was as close as it was, just because that the Chicago defense was so dominant. But yeah, I mean, 1-3. I keep thinking in my head, you got to get to 10 wins. They're 9 wins away still.
Yeah.
And 3 fewer games to win it in. And yeah, you got to do some soul searching. You got to take a look in the mirror, and we got news that Cup isn't going to be back for another couple of weeks, probably after the bye week is my guess. Puka
Yep.
Nacua, it's even further out. He's going to be coming back sometime week 9, maybe later.
Yep.
So yeah,
I was gonna say just further, our thoughts that the only reason why Cup wasn't even put on IR was just because there wasn't room, too many spots, and you can only designate 8 guys to return, and they had 8. So, if anyone's wondering, like, well, why wasn't he on IR if he's gonna end up missing 5-6 weeks? It's just I think there was a shot he could get back earlier. So out of the guys they were debating between, he was maybe had a better shot, whereas some of the other guys were like, no, guaranteed 6 to 8 weeks. But clearly, he would have been on IR if there was room because yeah, he's for sure not coming back till after the bye at least. I'm sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
Yeah, what was I talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that we can shift to the defense a little bit. You see 24 points and you think, okay, that's not a terrible defensive performance. But this was a Bears offense that had not been able to get going this season so far. Obviously, had some garbage time touchdowns last week against the Colts, which we talked about. Caleb Williams, I think, has at times looked good. Obviously,
he's getting better.
He's getting better. Didn't want him to do well today against the Rams, but obviously rooting for him. Trojan. But he's shown like some things getting better. But I think they let him do a little too much in that second half. I think they bottled it up pretty well in the first half. In the second half, they got going. The run game or the run defense, we've talked about that's going to be an issue all year long. And it clearly was. And what was our big key is shut the run game down early and force Chicago to feel like they have to throw the ball all game like they did against the Colts when Caleb Williams had 50 whatever passes. And, I'm not going to say they weren't able to completely do that, but DeAndre Swift only had 16 carries, but a 5.8 yard average with 93 yards. Caleb only had to throw the ball 23 times. So they had a total of like 29 rushes, I think. So it was really it was one of those games that really just did not have a lot of plays. I think each team only had like just under 50 plays total. So, you see some games of 60, 70 plays run. So not that many by either team, but yeah, the Rams defense is just, when you have Christian Rosebroom covering DJ Moore in the red zone, that kind of tells you the tale of the defense.
Yeah, and a couple plays later, Troy Reeder got beat too over the middle. So yeah, there's definitely deficiencies. I actually disagree with Trey White killing this. There's a trio of receivers here that are quite good.
Yeah.
DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Romo Dunze, and then that's not how they got beat. But don't tell anybody else in the league, but you can run on this defense. And when they kind of had to get that big stop in the fourth quarter, they weren't able to shut the run down there. And that's where I think the big deficiency is. Braden Fisk gets his first sack today. Kobe Turner had a bunch of pressures. Jared Verse, once again, looking really good. They came into this game with just 4 sacks, come out of it with 3. Some of those sacks were Caleb Williams' fault, not necessarily the pass rush getting home on time, but they got to figure out how to close up those gaps on the defense. I think the defensive line gets pushed around when they're asked to run defense. But also, I don't want to throw, everybody knows how we feel about Christian Roseboom and Troy Reeder.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to your point, and I'm not saying Trey White had a great game by any means. I think he did have mistakes, but the Bears had 157 total passing yards. Their leading receiver was their running back, DeAndre Swift, with 72 yards. The leading actual receiver, Cole Kmet, tight end with 34 yards. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze combined for under 60 yards receiving. 22 yards for Moore, 19 for Allen, 10 on one catch for Odunze. So Trey White has had issues this year, and I think there was some penalties that people probably are frustrated about for sure. So we're not even sitting here saying the guy's elite or whatever, but 157 passing yards is. I'm not looking at a corner saying they're the reason that they lost this game. It was the run defense is why they lost this game, and the offense unable to capitalize. That's what it comes down to: is the run defense and the offense not converting touchdowns in the red zone. Simple as that.
Yeah, and defenses commit more penalties when there's better players out there on the field. So I'm saying with this trio of receivers, you're looking at Kobe Durant out there wasn't going to be a starter. I thought Quentin Lake had a really good game. Sack from Quentin Lake.
Q. Solid game.
UCLA on USC sack game there. So
second week in a row, a UCLA on USC sack. Latu with the Colts got a sack on Williams last week, but
and Jordan Addison catching balls from Sam Darnold. There's all sorts of
two Trojans. Look at all these LA college pro athletes.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to be able to shut down. You got to be able to shut down the run. I mean, that's rule number one. I brought it up in our pregame show. Bill Belichick says you stop the run, so you have the privilege of rushing the passer. And they made Caleb Williams hang on to the ball a lot too. So yeah. I'm not as down on the secondary as I am on the run defensive side of things. I think they're getting into the backfield. They got to get sacks though to really shut it all down.
So just curious if we break this down more, because I think the defensive line has looked promising. I'll say. I think a lot of people think they look really good. I think when you break it down more, there's some, like one of the sacks was like a 5-second Williams just holding onto the ball in the pocket. I mean, you can call it a coverage sack. You can call that just rookie quarterback taking too long to process, whatever. But I do think they've been decent in pass rush. I mean, Jared Verse looked really good again in pressure win rate. Byron Young's looked really good. I think Braden Fisk has continually gotten better every single week. So I think they have absolutely looked a lot better in pass pro and very promising. But in the run defense, do you think it's a lack of size? Do you think it's gap integrity? Or do you think it's as simple as that second level, those linebackers that we try not to harp on too much, but Roseman and Reeder just not giving enough help in run defense? Because typically, if you're running a 4-man front, you have your, I'm not going to even talk like what the Rams scheme is, just general common knowledge. Like you have kind of your gap spots in the run defense, you plug those holes, and then your linebackers come and plug the remaining holes. And, you're hoping that you plug enough that the running back's running right into you. Do you think it's more just the linebackers are just not good?
It has to work. It has to work as a unit, yep. Run defense is about all 11 players on defense, recognizing where it's going and getting to the ball and putting a hat on a hat and taking down the tackles. The Rams lead the league by a long margin with missed tackles this year. So that's on everybody. That's not just on one person. They are too light up front. And Bobby Brown is just not good enough. In an interview we did with him at training camp, he likes to think of himself as a pass rusher. He doesn't like to think of himself as a nose tackle, even though in all of the Rams literature, he's listed as a nose tackle. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't want to attack this guy. He's gone after this year anyway. They're not going to re-sign him. I doubt anybody will. But he's supposed to be their kind of one big run clogger, and they're just kind of get pushed around there, and then you got a problem on the next level. And on that big run that Swift picked up a whole bunch of yards, 32-yard run or something like that, there was just a big wide open lane, and nobody got into that. And that includes the cornerbacks in that one. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just to back that up, like, not that, again, we say all the time, like PFF grades are not the end all be all, but Brown did finish this game with a 49.4 overall grade. 5th worst on defense. Jared Verse actually had the worst grade overall. Again, what we've talked about with Verse is he looks explosive. He's got a motor. He's in I think he's improved his pass rush arsenal in terms of moves. The tackling is, again, his biggest issue. And again, receiving a 25.9 tackling grade in this one with, 4 more missed tackles in this game. He had 4 last game, 4 this game. So as much as we want to praise Verse and as much as the fan base loves Verse, rightfully so, he's a rookie. There's going to be learning things, but tackling continues to be a huge issue. And that's some of the reason for the run woes. If he's able to stop guys earlier, and I'm not even thinking of specific plays, can't have missed tackles.
Yeah.
Drive killer or drive sustainers, I guess you could say.
He's used to being the most athletic guy on the field. He's used to being the fastest guy out there. But when it comes to Kyler Murray, even Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams, who isn't fast, but he's elusive. That's kind of where he's really getting exposed, is kind of like over pursuing, being over athletic, too deep in the pocket, focusing on a spot that is where he thinks the quarterback is going to be, and the quarterback is not there when he gets there. These aren't ACC quarterbacks. These are NFL quarterbacks, and he'll get better at that. He'll learn.
Yeah.
But these are the rookie mistakes that we talked about heading into the year, going, hey, this defensive line is really inexperienced, mostly made up of rookies and sophomores. So, it's just the reality that the Rams chose to live in by not going out and signing a veteran free agent to play on the defensive line, and relying on, Michael Hoyt and Bobby Brown as the most veteran guys out there. I don't love that. I never have. But these guys should know how to tackle,
Yeah.
Period.
Yes, we do read the chats, my man. So, reading through it, we put a good amount up, not all of them, but we do read the chats.
He's throwing out a spicy take out here. Release Cup, trade Stafford. I mean, any thoughts there?
I mean, we talked, or maybe I just wrote an article on it a few weeks ago. Once Tua went down, about the idea of trading Stafford to Miami. And at that point, it was too young in the season. Obviously, the trade deadline is still, like a month or so away. So there's time to see if it actually, how the season derails. But if this season keeps going like it is, like, let's say they lose this week, they're 1-4 going into the bye, and lose another 1 or 2 before the trade deadline. I think it's a real thought to trade Stafford to a contender, and get some picks back. Now, I'm going to be just my opinion, but you're not getting 2 first-round picks for Stafford. I know that's what they gave up to get him, but that was 3 years ago. He's 36, going to be 37 this year, and whatnot. So you could get at least some capital back, free up a lot of cap space and whatnot, and either, whether that trade includes a young guy or you just go into the draft next year, like knowing you're taking a quarterback, whatever it may be. But now the releasing of Cup, I don't know the semantics on that in terms of what kind of dead money that would be. But if you do trade Stafford at that point, you're basically, because we've said all along, this defense is already pretty much in a rebuild or remodel, whatever they want to call it. But there's no stars on this defense. As soon as they got rid of Ernest Jones, there's no stars. It's all rookies, and there's good players that have a lot of promise, but the defense is already in a rebuild. So then you're looking at the offense. If you trade Stafford, you basically have Cup, Dotson, and Jackson, who are your 3 big veteran contract guys. I know Havenstein, but he's coming towards the end of his contract. So then that's when you'd say, okay, are we building around these 3, or are we shedding that and full rebuild, offense and defense? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I tend not to think about hypotheticals like this terribly often, and just wait for things to happen. And I think that the Rams were kind of counting on this year to be a very, I'm going to call it a bridge year, to their future. Now we've hammered this point enough that they don't have a bridge quarterback to the future. They don't have their next franchise quarterback in the waiting at all. They don't have a Jordan Love back there. And without that, if this year isn't a bridge year where they're able to kind of keep that, rolling transitional rebuild happening, where, Cup hands the ball to Puka Nacua as the next great receiver, and the quarterback situation gets figured out somehow, and this defense is able to kind of coalesce and prove that they're contenders in 2025 and 6 and things like that. at what game do you start, really start thinking about this? At what, and there's just these kinds of timelines. And, you've always posited that the quadrilateral of that's not the right word, but quartet. Yes, there we go.
Yeah,
Quartet of Stafford, Donald, Cup, and Sean McVay would kind of go out together. That Stafford would, or McVay would leave when all of them are gone or decide to leave. Is that are we still, are you still kind of on that timeline? There's so many different kind of like, things that are there to consider. And I mean, it's just too much for my little brain to handle.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about.
I'm not ready to burn it all down. I got a few more games to know. That's where I guess I'll end that one. I'm not ready.
Well, and I think it comes down to the trade deadline, which I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's middle November, right? Is the trade deadline?
They moved it back a week, so I think it's like the first week of November.
Okay.
It used to be like right around Halloween, but Halloween. Now, somewhere in November.
So like early to mid November. So I mean, you got till then to basically assess what your season looks like. And I mean, we know how this Rams team operates. Like if they can stack a few games, there's no reason why they won't go and trade for some big name to bring in and go on another run. Because I mean, I don't think this, as it was constructed, they're obviously not trying to do a rebuild with how they built this offense. So there's no sense, but they do know that Stafford's time is limited. I mean, he's only got 2 years left on his deal, and he is turning 37. So but if you get to that, 2-3 weeks from now again, and you're 1-6, then it's probably time to say, what are we really doing here? Are we packing in and running this exact roster back next year? Or do we trade some of these big assets and really rebuild for the future? Yeah, I don't know. As it looks right now, they're not going to win many more games until everyone's back healthy. And as we said after the Cardinals game, yeah, sure, they're going to get everyone back, but what's their record going to be when they're back? Are they going to be 1-7 when Nakua and Cup are back? Or are they going to be 3-4? Like it really, and I know that math isn't right. 1-7 or 3-5, whatever. That matters, obviously. So I agree with you. I'm not ready yet, but obviously the trade deadline is where that decision needs to be made. And, if a team like Miami is still hanging on to playoff aspirations, or even a team like the Colts, I know they drafted Anthony Richardson 4th overall just 2 years ago, but dude can't stay healthy. They won today because of Joe Flacco. They might be like, hey, let's go get Stafford and try to have a real shot at this thing. So who knows? I think there'll be options out there, but you got a few more weeks to really assess and see after the bye.
David brings up an interesting question here about kind of the identity of this team. Are they play action with 12 personnel or 11 with empties, or do they run zone blocking or gap scheme? It's hard to have an identity when, on offense, especially if most of your good players are out. We came in saying really excited about this identity that we saw in the back run of last year. And it looked great, but they didn't come into the season doing that, even when everybody was healthy on the front. Well, not everybody was healthy coming into the season, but we didn't see it those first 2 games. It kind of looked like those old McVay offenses. And man, what a year!
Yeah.
We were talking bet the over 8.5, and man, I don't know. You can't have an identity when you don't have your players. And you can't reinvent it. They kind of reinvented it. We liked, seeing more 12 personnel early on. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough too when games like today, they should have won.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
Should have won this game today. Because I think there was obviously they left a lot of points on the board in the red zone. And then we mentioned again the missed tackle. I'm not saying they necessarily fully beat themselves. I think the Bears did make some plays when they had to. But again, I mean, just the red zone efficiency. I mean, that's the game right there. Regardless of what the defense did, the defense could have done exactly what they did that game. Give it 24 points. The Rams punch even one of those in, they win the game.
I mean,
instead of settling full field goals.
we kind of buried the lead, but the punting in this game was phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that Bears Aussie punter, pretty solid.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ethan Evans, he didn't punt until the late in the second half, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the second half. So that the Rams were moving the ball. They just did not take advantage of their opportunities. And McVay should have recognized that by the third time that they got, shut down deep into the Bears territory in the first half. You got to go for it. You got to take a chance on your team. You got to bet on Stafford. You got to bet on Tutu Atwell. And where's Demarcus Robinson?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 6 touchdowns in 7 games down the stretch last year in the red zone?
Yeah.
2 catches today. So I think it almost is at the point where like red zone needs to be 4 down territory at this point with how this team is playing. And I mean, do you think it's just from watching this game specifically, do you think it was like play calling? Was it execution? I mean, again, the Bears do have a really good defense. Let's not like salt over that. Like they are a really, really solid defense, great defensive front, good backers, great secondary. So, I mean, they're good at every level. But there's usually reasons, and the red zone's obviously harder. It's a shorter field. You have less to play with there, but the good, great teams are still very efficient in the red zone. The mediocre teams are mediocre and the bad teams are bad. And it doesn't matter what you do in between the 20s. It matters what you do in the red zone.
Yeah.
And so far, this has been a bad team in the red zone, and they're 1-3.
I'm looking at one particular drive right here. It is game was 6-7. They get into the red zone with a 5-yard Ronnie Rivers run. A short pass to Colby Parkinson for 15 yards. Tutu Atwell offensive pass interference. That sets up second down, second and 15. Incomplete to Jordan Whittington. 3rd and 15. Incomplete to Tutu Atwell. Then they kick a field goal. Obviously, you're not going to go for it on 4th and 15 there. And but that play calling. That was on the play calling. But I mean, Stafford attempted this pass on the previous possession when they drove down. They attempted a pass that was intercepted, but they had both gone out of bounds. And I was so like perplexed. Why would you attempt that throw when Colby Parkinson can't catch that ball? He can't be the first player to touch that ball coming out of bounds. So that was execution. That was on Stafford there. Mm-hmm. Obviously things are moving fast. It's easy for me to say that, but those are 2 missed opportunities, so
yeah,
little column A, little column B on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we'll see. That's obviously, I'm sure, will be a point of emphasis all week at practice is that red zone offense. And, and obviously you're missing your 2 elite playmakers in Kupp and Nacua. So how do you offset that? And, what differentiating play calls can you do? Because this is where McVay, being this genius offensive mind, you have to then have some ingenuity here in these play calls because you don't have the luxury of just like my guy's going to beat your guy. No. You just don't have that. Now, some of these weren't necessarily on like the 3-yard line. I get that, but the simple like what Kupp has made his salt in, that little from the slot stutter step to go inside and then out route straight to the pylon. And he's always like wide open. There's no reason why Tutu Atwell or Tyler Johnson like couldn't do that play. And we haven't seen them run it ever without like Kupp or Nacua. And so it's little things like that where it's just like, I don't know if he doesn't trust the guys out there to run certain things. So they run kind of vanilla play calls. Or if he's just trusting too much that they're just going to beat their guys and they're just not quite there talent wise versus, what they have when they're healthy.
Well, we've mentioned this before, but it's evident that McVay does not trust Blake Corum to run the offense as a running back. That's why he's not in there. And so, I mean, when McVay bets on himself, he says, we can kick a field goal here because I know that I can get a guy open. I know I can pick up a big chunk play. I know I can get in the end zone on the next drive. But sometimes he's wrong, against a defense like this, you're going to be wrong. With defensive backs like they have, that's going to make him wrong on some of those occasions. And, football games are decided by just a few possessions, a few plays here or there. This is a one score game. And he bet on himself one too many time. Chargers are up by 10 points against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Without their starting 2 tackles.
Oof.
They have injuries too. Every team has injuries. That's the unfortunate thing. Rams are banged up. Absolutely.
This is a great point. Thank you, Bears fans, for making this.
Yeah.
I know people will trash McVay. I put Sean McVay right now in the top 3, top 5 best coaches in the league. 100%. So when I rag on him, I'm ragging on things that are very specific, and there's just he's great in other ways. So yeah, if you fire McVay, who are you going to go hire? You tell me. Name a name.
Yeah, Andy Reid. That's like it.
Yeah. Andy Reid's not walking through that door.
No, it's a good point, because I think we sometimes both are very critical, but it's just because the standard is so high of what McVay can be. We know how great of a coach he is. I agree. I think he's top 3, hands down, coach in this league. Any team besides the Chiefs, and I mean, that might be it. Obviously, obviously the Ravens love Harbaugh, the Niners love Shanahan. What KOC is doing in Minnesota right now is absolutely phenomenal. But I mean, any team that's not like in love with their coach, McVay is getting a call within 30 seconds and getting offered as much money as he wants. So he's one of the best coaches in football. We know the standard that he set for himself, the standard that he's shown that he can do. And so when he deviates from that, or doesn't deviate from what he thinks will work that isn't working, that's where we get like critical. Like, all right, we know you're smarter than this, because you're like a genius offensive coach, and then you're not like calling genius plays in the red zone.
And 1 week ago, he was aggressive.
Yeah, a magician last week.
On 4th down and in the red zone, he was aggressive, and sometimes his hand is forced by the football gods. But when he isn't, he just believes in himself a little bit too much sometimes.
Yeah. I know we didn't get to talk about it, and I know I over belabor this point, but like last week, I thought McVay coached circles around Shanahan, and that was the reason why the Rams won. This week, I can't say the same.
Well, and you come out of a super emotional win like that, and try to match that emotion on the road, totally different environment. It's tough. It's tough, and all these games are good. All these games are tough. So yeah. What's up, Jason?
What up, Jason? Good to see you, my brother. Wasn't Parkinson brought in to be that red zone threat? Could be wrong, but haven't seen, his number called at all. I'll let you speak on this more, Ryan, but to me, he was brought in mainly as a run blocker. That was originally why he was brought in, to be that extension of the offensive line. And when they signed Jonah Jackson, when they extended Kevin Dotson, when they were like, we are going to be a run-heavy football team that protects Matthew Stafford, he can give you some verticality. But if you look at his career in Seattle, he was not like their pass-catching threat by any stretch of the imagination. He was a run-blocking tight end. And then when Tyler Higbee, obviously he was already injured from the playoff game, but when you still don't have him back, Davis Allen's been banged up. He's kind of been forced to be in that passing game. And I think he's done a pretty good job. But to your point, Jason, like, it's interesting that then in the red zone, he's not used at all, except for the one play, which resulted in interception. But your thoughts, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the whole identity thing that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Another boxing idiom there. And they're getting punched in the mouth. They're like, so it's, I'm sure McVay's in a press conference right now saying like it's hard to play call when nothing's developing, a superior defense got the better of a beat up offense, right? And that's all I can boil it down to. Parkinson was brought in for several reasons. He's a good blocker. He showed he can catch the ball. But he was never a pass catcher before. So, it's, in terms of scheming him and getting him open and getting him touches, tight ends are great for red zone. They're usually taller than whoever's covering them, so yeah, I love that idea. And, we'll see what the play calling is like over the next few weeks. We got the Packers are kind of suspect right now. We'll see what they're like. And then we got the old Las Vegas Raiders coming up after the bye week. So and they're going to be healthier there. Maybe we might see Higbee back in the game by then. So I mean the season's still long. We still got a long way to go.
Yeah. I think, yeah, exactly. Did I freeze? Can you hear me at least? Oh, there we go. Am I back?
You're back. Yeah.
Back. That was weird. But yeah, just a last thing on Parkinson. He's never had more than 25 catches in a season, which isn't, not a lot of tight ends have a ton of catches outside of the big, like 3 or 4, but just shows he's not has never been like that receiving threat, but he can be serviceable when needed. But the Rams need a little bit more. And the McVay offense never really utilizes the tight end much anyway. I mean, Higbee's never had more than 500 yards in a season. He'll have games where he'll have massive games, and then he'll have 3 catches over 6 weeks. So the McVay offense in general, I don't think ever really utilizes the tight ends, but that's kind of what we are alluding to in the adjustments of, what can you do more of now that you have less? You don't have your top tier talent at the receiving room. So do you really feel great about Tyler Johnson, who was a practice squad guy, now making him a big threat, which they haven't, but do you feel like that, or do you feel like utilizing a tight end more? So I don't know. We'll look more into the tape. I want to watch the game back, and then tomorrow maybe we'll get into it, but yeah, tough loss, 1-3 on the season now, long way to go. Things can turn around. I mean, this team, as we said after the Arizona game, this season can absolutely get derailed and be done. But if any team can turn it around, even with the injuries, it is the Rams, because of McVay and Stafford. Because of those 2 reasons. Stafford, again, not his best game, but still made some elite throws. I mean, that sweet little flip, that little flip toss he did to Kyron. I mean, that was sweet. That was cool.
He's still so good. He's still so good. And this was one of his bad games, and he did really well.
Yeah, it was not a good game for him, and yet it was still a decent quarterback. It was still a better game than Caleb Williams. Yeah. And so there's always a chance, as long as those 2 guys are there, McVay and Stafford, and Kyron Williams is playing really well. So, but they're going to have to change a lot of things. You got to get better in the red zone. You got to get better in tackling, and you got to get better in run defense. And all of those are simple to say, difficult to actually fix. And especially already 4 weeks into the season. So it's a good thing they get the bye. We'll obviously preview the Packers game next week. After they're coming off a tough loss to Minnesota, but they do have Jordan Love back, who I thought looked, good, but we'll talk about that later in the week. So any final thoughts on this live? Any final questions, anyone? And then we'll get out of here with that.
Yeah. So Higbee has gone over 500 yards several times. 734 yards was his peak in 2019.
Yeah. I stand corrected.
Yeah. So,
maybe I was thinking Demarcus Robinson has never gone over 500 yards. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
That's true.
That's true. Which I know that's true. And for whatever reason, they're not targeting him. So that's a whole nother, we'll get into that more too. But anything else to add?
No. On to Cincinnati.
Yeah. on to Green Bay. Yeah. Tough loss, 24-18. We got into it. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us. Thanks for all the chat and the chatter that you brought. If you have not yet, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, head over there. It's just Rams LAFB, real easy to find, Rams LAFB. If you're watching on X or Twitter, thank you so much. And obviously you can go to our website, lafbnetwork.com, for all of our Rams coverage and all of our LA sports coverage in general. Big USC win if you're a USC fan out there. Got a lot of good USC stuff. Not a good UCLA season, but we got stuff on them, and the Chargers playing right now. We got stuff on them as well. So plus some Dodgers and Lakers content also. So, but thank you all for hanging out. That's Skinny T. I'm Ryan Dowd. Everyone have a enjoyable rest of your Sunday. Tough loss, but hey, we'll see if this team can bounce back. Plenty to still talk about and get into. And like we said, as long as McVay and Stafford is there, that they'll always have a chance. We'll just see if they can correct these 3 big things that need to be corrected: the red zone, efficiency, tackling, and the run defense. We'll get all into that next week. Thank you all so much, everyone.